All right. Chapter 12 got quite serious with Nickabrick bringing in the hag and the werewolf, and they were wanting to bring the White Witch back to use her power to defeat Miraz. And that did not work out. When we follow the world, it never will lead to a great conclusion, as we saw for Nickabrick. He's dead, and the hag and the werewolf. But the problem still remains that Miraz has the army and that he is winning. But now Caspian is aligned with King Edmund, King Peter, Queen Susan, and Queen Lucy. And Aslan is there. But remember what Aslan says. It's never going to happen the same way twice. So as we begin chapter 13, and we will finish the rest of this book next week, so don't worry, we will finish. Chapter 13, the High King in Command. Now, said Peter as they finished their meal, Aslan and the girls, that's Queen Susan and Queen Lucy, Caspian, are somewhere close. We don't know when he will act. In his time, no doubt, not ours. In the meantime, he would like us to do what we can on our own. You say, Caspian, that you are not strong enough to meet Miraz in pitched battle. I'm afraid not, High King, said Caspian. He was liking Peter very much, but was rather tongue-tied. It was much stranger for him to meet the great kings of the old out of the stories than it was for them to meet him. Very well, then, said Peter. I'll send him a challenge to single combat. No one had thought of this before. Please, said Caspian, could it not be me? I want to avenge my father. You're wounded, said Peter. And anyway, wouldn't he just laugh at a challenge from you? I mean, we have seen that you are a king and a warrior, but he thinks of you as a kid. But, sire, said the badger, who sat very close to Peter and never took his eyes off him, will he accept a challenge even from you? He knows he has the stronger army. Very likely he won't, said Peter. But there's always the chance, and even if he doesn't, we shall spend the best part of the day sending heralds to and fro and all that. By then, Aslan may have done something, and at least I can inspect the army and strengthen the position. I will send the challenge. In fact, I will write it at once. Have you pen and ink, Master Doctor? Oh, a scholar is never without them, Your Majesty, answered Dr. Cornelius. Very well, I will dictate, said Peter. And while the doctor spread out a parchment and opened his inkhorn and sharpened his pen, Peter leaned back with eyes half closed and recalled to his mind the language in which he had written such things long ago in Narnia's golden age. Oh, okay, right, he said at last. And now, if you are ready, Doctor? Dr. Cornelius dipped his pen and waited. Peter dictated as follows. Peter, by the gift of Aslan, by election, by prescription, and by conquest, High King over the kings of Narnia, Emperor of the Lone Isles, and Lord of Cair Paravel, Knight of the most noble order of the Lion, to Miraz, son of Caspian the Eighth, sometime Lord Protector of Narnia, and now styling himself King of Narnia. Greeting. Have you got that? Narnia, greeting, muttered Doctor. Yes, sire. Then begin a new paragraph, said Peter. For to prevent the effusion of blood, and for avoiding all other inconveniences likely to grow from the wars now levied in our realm of Narnia, it is our pleasure to adventure our royal person on behalf of our trusty and well-beloved Caspian in clean wager of battle, to prove upon your lordship's body that said Caspian is lawful king under us in Narnia, both by our gift and by the laws of the Telemarenes, and your lordship twice guilty of treachery, both in withholding the dominion of Narnia from the said Caspian, and in the most abominable, don't forget to spell it with an H, doctor, bloody and unnatural murder of your kindly lord and brother King Caspian the Ninth of that name. Wherefore we most heartily provoke, challenge, and defy your lordship to the said combat and mockery that has sent these letters by the hand of our well-beloved and royal brother, Edmund, sometime king under us in Narnia, Duke of Lantern Waste and Count of the Western March, Knight of the most noble order of the Table, to whom we have given full power of determining your lordship all the conditions of said battle, giving at our lodging in Aslan's house this day, the month of Green Roof, in the first year of Caspian the 10th of Narnia. Well, that ought to do, said Peter, drawing a deep breath. And now we must send 2 others with King Edmund. I think the giant ought to be one. He's not very clever, said Caspian. Oh, of course not, said Peter. But any giant looks impressive if only he will keep quiet, and it will cheer him up. But who for the other? Upon my word, said Trumpkin, if you want someone who can kill with looks, Reepicheep would be the best. He would indeed, from all I hear, said Peter with a laugh. If he wasn't only so small, they wouldn't even see him until he was close. Send Glenstorm, sire, said Truffle Hunter. No one ever laughed at a centaur. An hour later, the two great lords in the army of Miraz, Lord Glosleil and Lord Sospian, strolling along their lines and picking their teeth after breakfast, looked up and saw coming to them from the wood the centaur and giant Wimbleweather, whom they had seen before in battle, and between them a figure they could not recognize, nor indeed would the other boys at Edmund's school have recognized him if they would have seen him at this moment. For Aslan had breathed on him at their meeting, and a kind of greatness hung about him. What's to do? Said Lord Glosvale. An attack? A parley, rather, said Sospian. See, they carry green branches. They are coming to surrender most likely. He that is walking between the centaur and the giant has no look of surrender in his face, said Glosleil. Who can he be? It is not the boy Caspian. Oh, no, indeed, said Sospian. This is a fell warrior, I warrant you. Wherever the rebels have got him from, he is, in your lordship's private ear, a kinglier man than Miraz ever was. And what mail he wears! None of our smiths can make the like. I'll wager my dappled Pomley that he brings a challenge and not a surrender, says Glosvale. How then? Says Sospian. We hold the enemy in our fist here. Miraz would never be so harebrained as to throw away his advantage on a combat. He might be brought into it, said Glosvale in a much lower voice. Softly, said Sospian. Step a little side over here out of earshot of those sentries. Now, have I taken your lordship's meaning right? If the king undertook wager of battle, whispered Glosleil, why either he would kill or be killed. So, said Sospian, nodding his head, and if he killed, we would have won the war. Certainly, and if not, why, if not, we should be as able to win it without that king's grace in front of him. For I need not to tell your lordship that Miraz is no great captain, and after that we should both be victorious and kingless. And if it is your meaning, my lord, that you and I could hold this land quite as conveniently without a king as with one, Glosville's face grew ugly. "Not forgetting," said he, "that it was we who first put him on the throne. And in all the years that he has enjoyed it, what fruits have come our way? What gratitude has he shown us?" "Say no more," answered Caspian. "But look, here comes one to fetch us to the king's tent." When they reached Miraz's tent, they saw Edmund and his two companions seated outside it, and being entertained with cakes and juice, having already delivered the challenge and withdrawn while the king was considering it. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to get Miraz to fight one-on-one with Peter instead of this whole battle. And these two lords and Miraz's army are thinking to themselves, just like Miraz schemed and killed to get the throne, they're starting to scheme and thinking to themselves, maybe Miraz loses. Maybe they could take Miraz's place. Watch how they go. When they reached Miraz's tent, they saw Edmund and his two companions seated outside. Oh, I read this part. That's okay. Being entertained with cakes and juice, having already delivered the challenge and withdrawn while the king was considering it. When they saw them thus at close quarters, the two Telemarine lords thought all three of them very alarming. Inside, they found Miraz, unarmed and finishing his breakfast. His face was flushed, and there was a scowl on his brow. "There!" he growled, flinging the parchment across the table at them. "See what a pack of nursery tales our jackanapes of a nephew has sent us." "Well, by your leave, sire," said Glosville, "if the young warrior with whom we have just seen outside is King Edmund mentioned in the writing, then I wouldn't call him a nursery tale, but a very dangerous knight." "King Edmund, pugh," said Miraz. "Does your lordship believe those old wives' fables about Peter and Edmund and the rest?" I believe my eyes, your majesty," said Glosville. "Well, this is to no purpose," said Miraz. "But as touching the challenge, I suppose there is only one opinion between us." "I suppose so, indeed, sire," said Glosville. "And what is that?" answered the king. "Most infallibly to refuse it," said Glosville. "For though I have never been called a coward, I must plainly say that to meet that young man in battle is more than my heart would serve me for, and as likely his brother, the High King, is more dangerous than he, why on your life, my Lord King, have nothing to do with him." "Plague on you!" cried Miraz. "It was not that sort of counsel that I wanted. Do you think I am asking you if I should be afraid to meet this Peter, even if there is such a man? Do you think I fear him? I wanted your counsel on the policy of the matter, whether we, having the advantage, should hazard to wager on the battle." Oh, okay. "To which I can only answer, your majesty," said Glosville, "for that which, for all the reasons, the challenge should be refused. There is death in the strange knight's face." "There you are again," said Miraz, now thoroughly angry. "Are you trying to make it appear that I am as great a coward as your lordship?" "Your majesty may say your pleasure," said Glosville sulkily. "You talk like an old woman, Glosville," said the king. "What do you say, Lord Caspian?" "Oh, do not touch it, sire," was the reply. "And what your majesty says of the policy of the thing comes in very happily. It gives your majesty excellent grounds for a refusal without any cause for questioning your majesty's honor or courage." "Great heaven!" exclaimed Miraz, jumping to his feet. "Are you also bewitched today? Do you think I am looking for grounds to refuse it? You might as well call me a coward to my face." The conversation was going exactly as the two lords had wished, so they said nothing. "I see what it is," said Miraz, after staring at them as if his eyes would start to bug out of his head. "You are lily-livered as hares yourselves, and have the effrontery to imagine my heart after the likeness of yours. Grounds for refusal indeed. Excuses for not fighting. Are you even soldiers? Are you telemarines? Are you even men? And if I do refuse it, as all good reasons of captaincy and martial policy urge me to do, you will think and teach others to think I was afraid. Is it not so? No man of your majesty's age," playing the age card, rude. "No man of your majesty's age," said Glosliel, "would be called a coward by any wise soldier, but for refusing the combat with a great warrior in the flower of his youth." So he's calling Miraz old and calling Peter young, and just basically saying that, well, you probably couldn't beat him because you're old, which I find very offensive. Just saying. "So, I'm to be a dotard with 1 foot in the grave as well as a dastard?" roared Miraz. "I'll tell you what it is, my lords, with your womanish counsels, ever shying from the true point, which is one of policy. You have done the very opposite of your intent. I had meant to refuse it, but I will accept it. Do you hear? Accept it. I'll not be shamed because of some witchcraft or treason has frozen both your bloods." "We beseech your majesty," said Glosliel, but Miraz had flung out of the tent, and they could hear him bawling out his acceptance to Edmund. The two lords looked at each other and smiled and chuckled quietly. "I knew he'd do it if he were properly chafed," said Glosliel. "But I'll not forget he called me a coward. It shall be paid for." There was a great stirring in Aslan's house when the news came back and was communicated with various creatures. Edmund, with one of Miraz's captains, had already marked out the place for the combat, and ropes and stakes had been put about it. 2 telemarines were to stand at 2 of the corners, and 1 in the middle of one side as marshals of the lists. 3 marshals for the other 2 corners, and the other sides were to be furnished by the High King. Peter was just explaining to Caspian that he could not be one because his right to the throne was what they were fighting about, when suddenly a thick, sleepy voice said, "Your Majesty, please." Peter turned, and there stood the eldest of the Bulgy Bears. "If you please, your Majesty," he said, "I am a bear, I am." "To be sure, so you are, and a good bear too, I don't doubt it," said Peter. "Yes," said the bear, "but it has always been a right of the bears to supply 1 marshal of the lists." "Oh, don't let him," whispered Trumpkin to Peter. "He is a good creature, but he'll shame us all. He'll go to sleep, and he will suck his paws in front of the enemy." "I can't help that," said Peter, "because he's quite right. The bears had that privilege. I can't imagine how it has been remembered all of these years when so many other things have been forgotten." "Please, your Majesty," said the bear. "It is your right," said Peter, "and you shall be one of the marshals. But you must remember not to suck your paws." "Oh, of course not," said the bear in a very shocked voice. "Why, you're doing it this very minute," bellowed Trumpkin. The bear whipped his paw out of his mouth and pretended that he hadn't heard. "Sire!" came a shrill voice from near the ground. "Ah, Reep-a-Jeep," said Peter after looking up and down and around as people most usually did when addressed by the mouse. "Sire," said Reep-a-Jeep, "my life is ever at your command, but my honor is my own. Sire, I have among my people the only trumpeter in your majesty's army. I had thought, perhaps, we might have been sent with this challenge. Sire, my people are grieved. Perhaps if it was your pleasure that I should be a marshal of the lists, it would content them." A noise not unlike thunder broke out from somewhere overhead at this point, as the giant Wimblewether burst into one of those not very intelligent laughs to which the nicer sorts of the giants are kind of liable. He checked himself at once and looked as grave as a turnip by the time Reep-a-Jeep had discovered where the noise had come from. "I'm afraid it wouldn't do," said Peter very gravely. "Some humans are afraid of mice." "I have observed that, sire," said Reep-a-Jeep. "And it would not be quite fair to Miraz," Peter continued, "to have in sight anything that might abate the edge of his courage." "Your Majesty is the mirror of honor," said the mouse with one of his most admirable bows, "and on this matter we might have but a single mind. I thought I heard someone laughing just now. If anyone present wishes to make me the subject of his wit, I am very much at his service, with my sword, whichever he has his leisure." An awful silence followed this remark, which was broken by Peter saying, "Giant Wimblewether and the bear and the centaur Glenstorm shall be our marshals. The combat will be in 2 hours after noon. Dinner at noon precisely." "I say," said Edmund as they walked away, "I suppose it is all right. I suppose you can beat him." "That's what I'm fighting him to find out," said Peter. And that's where we leave them. Peter is ready to go one-on-one with Miraz in armed combat. Does Peter still remember what it's like to be High King and do battle in wars? We'll find out when we start the next chapter, which you will get next week. Bye, guys.